Quackenbush is sponsored by the Word on Wealth Radio Network. This is the Word on Wealth with Gary Quackenbush of GQ Law. Gary is a San Diego financial solutions attorney, protecting people like you. The Word on Wealth team of financial experts is here to answer your questions and help preserve your family's financial.
You're live.
Happy Wednesday, everybody. This is Gary Quackenbush on Word on Wealth. Today is a great day. I always love Wednesdays because we have our in-house real estate, not really in-house, he's in radio, in air, expert of all things real estate. We have Ken Pecus, and Ken Pecus he's the founder of the Pecus Group at eXp Realty. He's a personal friend of mine. He's a professional friend of mine. He's helped my family a lot with real estate sales. He's helped me personally, which has been a wonderful experience. And Ken is here with us today. We've got him to the bottom of the hour. If you want to call and ask a question of Ken, anything to do with real estate, real property transactions, he's the man. And we've got him right here, cornered on this show. The number is 888-344-1170. Ken, how you doing today?
Well, I'm just thinking about in-house. I'll stay in-house, Gary, as long as you make dinner.
I know and if it were sunnier today, I'd be outside, but there we go.
My heater went on. I posted on Facebook. I was on a business call and I was still at my house working from my home office, and my heater went on automatically. I'm like, what is that sound? And I realized it's the heater. This is not right for April 12th.
No, it's not. Right. I mean, I was up visiting my son and his family in Portland, Oregon area. And it's perfect for there. In fact, today would be balmy. It'd be wonderful. But but it ain't Portland, thank goodness. He lives in Vancouver, which is beautiful, right across the river from Portland. But when the sun comes out, it's awesome. But I don't know. I have it's my oldest son, Matt. He's really funny. He said, "Dad, do you know how to tell if somebody's from San Diego?" I said, I don't know. And he said, "They talk about the weather." I went, what? And he said, "Dad, anybody else doesn't talk about the weather because they don't have weather to brag about." It was so funny.
Oh my God, I'm a stereotype. God,
is that great?
That happened. Gosh, yeah.
It was just funny.
I fit it.
No, it's true. It's just because it's like, my gosh, it's like, yeah. we talk about surfing, in our backyard, and we talk about, having mountains and desert in our other side of our backyard. And we have wonderful weather. And what we talk about other than that? We don't say, "Oh yeah,
well,
man, there's
our real estate." It's all about real estate marketing, so that's what we're paying for. So it's part of my life.
Absolutely,
that's part of the amenities I sell. So
absolutely. So today, Ken, I would love to get into it more kind of it is tax time. I mean, the tax deadline is supposed to be, April 17th. But it's only April 17th if you're having to file an out-of-state tax return that would go, and out-of-state tax returns require you to file a federal tax return at the same time. So that would mean that your tax deadline would be April 17th. But the federal deadline for tax returns is pushed out into the middle of October. And that applies to like all counties in in California, except for like Redding County, where my sister lives, which is bizarre. I mean, they had more flooding than any county, but the county up there said, "We're not playing that game," so they didn't get the designation of emergency. Bizarre. Anyway, so perfect at tax time because we're going to talk about real property taxes, specifically 1031 exchanges, like-kind exchanges. And that's, so you're the expert in that. I know very little, enough to be like super dangerous about that, but, maybe we could talk about, why they happen, when, how, where are they done? Let's talk about that.
Sure. In fact, I got two things to kind of set the stage up, but one thing that came up that's not taxed, and I just want to make a point of it, and I don't know if everybody has paid attention, but yesterday the latest inflation report came out, and it is suppressed a little bit more. It went down from March of 2022 to the comparison, year-over-year comparison from the February numbers. So I bring that up because with the CPI going down just to 0.1%, February's was 0.4%. That probably holds a lot of hope and promise for the next Fed meeting, because probably if this continues to hold, we're probably only looking at one or maybe two more small quarter point increases, 25 basis point increases before they kind of stabilize for the rest of the year. So that's good for real estate. That's good for anybody that's trying to plan for the rest of the year. The inflation, it definitely seems like the shipping, the whole, congestion that created the supply chain, collapse. It seems like that has completely pulled back to 2019 time periods, even with the China. So that's all good for real estate, because I think that gives people a planning ability looking at the rest of the year, that we probably won't see any gigantic spike in the second half of the year, which is nice, because planning is a really important thing for people.
No, that's great. That's really good news. Yeah, thanks for bringing that up. It's always, I love that you keep your finger on that pulse, because I don't, and that's why we have you. Like, Ken, come on the show and tell me things I'm supposed to know. So that's good. Good deal.
Hey, it's whatever.
2 minutes.
Everybody's overall financial health, right? So
absolutely.
So the tax part, what really got me thinking about having this discussion about 1031 exchanges and or doing a tax protection is this week, or in the last week, I sold a bunch of stock I had, and of course the stock had I'm brilliant, right? So I made a lot of money on the stock, but I wanted to have it reissued to another, to some other companies and everything. So I want to sell it, take my profits, and go and put it into things that I think have a little more upward mobility. Well, the hard part is that when you sell stock or sell securities, with slight exceptions, unless you're doing it in retirement accounts, you got to watch when you bought it, how you bought it. At least I had to hold my stock for at least a year so I can get long-term capital gains, but I'm going to have to pay taxes on it, federal and state taxes. And the low part of the taxes now I'm going to have to pay is 29%, 20 for long-term federal,
1 minute,
probably 9.9, or maybe a little bit more for state, maybe 13, depends on how it plays out. So a good, third chunk of my money is already going to go to taxes, and I can't use that money to reinvest. So that's why real estate and 1031 is a wonderful thing, because real estate and real property is the only avenue, I should say one of the only avenues, that you can actually defer taxes and on any unrecognized gain, and then keep using that money to keep making you money as you go along.
Excellent.
And so that's probably the biggest thing about taxes that I want to talk about with the 1031s. Okay.
So we're going to be talking about that a little bit more. We're going to take a really quick break. We've got Ken Pecus here from the Pecus Group. His phone number is 619-977-8419. And we have him here right to the bottom of the hour. We're talking about 1031 exchanges, which fascinate me. I think they're terrific. I mean, and I have my theories on them. And we've got Ken, the expert, coming up next here on The Word on Wealth.
You don't need to know everything. You just need to know where to find answers you can trust when you need them. Welcome to The Word on Wealth with Gary Quackenbush. We're here to help you build, protect, and transfer everything you've worked hard for with expert estate planning, trust administration, inheritance, and probate. Call Gary and the team at gqlaw.com, 855-500-TRUST.
You're saving and investing for the future, and that's good. Have you ever stopped to think, where does my money actually go? This is Faith-Based Investing with Anthony Wright.
Most Christian families don't understand this one thing. The money that you're saving for retirement helps fund the abortion industry as well as other liberal anti-family causes. It's the sad, dirty little secret of American investing world. And here's the good news, though. You probably also didn't know that just a few minutes of your time, and we'll screen and clean your investments for you. There's no cost, no obligation. Learn the truth about your own investment mix. Then the choice is yours. Remember, the word says when God's money is in the hands of the righteous, the people rejoice. Well, we also are fiduciary investment advisor representatives. That means that our firm makes a pledge to always act in your best interest. Go to BibleSafeInvesting.com. Download a free copy of my book, Faith-Based Investing, or call me at 931-RETIRED. And please don't forget, listen to Faith-Based Investing this weekend right here on Family Talk.
Gary, your team at GQ Law are experts at solving IRS and state tax problems. Talk about that.
When people have a tax problem, it tends to really stress them out. And one of the things we've been able to do is figure out how to resolve tax problems. One thing we might be doing is setting up a payment plan or getting a collection delay, maybe getting a determination that the person shouldn't have to pay the taxes at all. We do offers and compromise. We do audit reconsiderations. And one of the things that's a really powerful tool that some people don't recognize is sometimes bankruptcy can be used to actually eliminate taxes when there's certain conditions of the code that are met. So we can do all kinds of things. After we analyze your situation, we can figure out what's available, discuss your options, and figure out which ones to implement, what it's going to cost, how long it's going to take. And we can get people out from under all kinds of tax problems so they can sleep again. That's our goal.
Request your free initial consultation. GQLaw.com, 855-500-TRUST, GQLaw.com.
Who will you trust with the biggest financial decision of your lifetime? If you're planning to buy or sell a home in San Diego County, do what I do and work with the true San Diego real estate experts. Ken Pecus and the Pecus Group helped me and my family. They can help you. This is Gary Quackenbush of The Word on Wealth. You hear Ken every week here on The Word on Wealth. He's our expert. He's got integrity, exceptional service, deep knowledge of the San Diego, Coronado, and South Bay regions. These are just some of the reasons that Ken Pecus has completed hundreds of transactions. He manages a powerful team of professionals at the Pecus Group, from single-family attached homes to luxury high-value waterfront properties to apartment buildings. Ken Pecus is ready to help you avoid problems and costly mistakes. Learn more online at kenpecus.com. That's Ken Pecus, Pecus.com, or call 619-977-8419.
DRE number 010566969, brokered by eXp Realty.
It's 20.
You're not alone. Ask for the legal help you need. Call Gary and the team at GQ Law, 855-500-TRUST, or go online and download Gary's free ebooks and videos. Read Gary's blogs. Call or click to request your free consultation or to talk with a member of the GQ team. That's GQLaw.com, 855-500-TRUST.
You're live.
And here we have Ken Pecus of the Pecus Group with us on the air today. Ken's number, direct line to him, is 619-977-8419. And we are talking about 1031 exchanges. How appropriate for a show called The Word on Wealth. We have Ken here every Wednesday as our real estate expert. If you want to be part of the show and ask Ken questions, if you have something specific about a 1031 exchange, give us a call at 888-344-1170. Okay, so 1031 exchange, called like-kind exchange, called tax-free exchange. Ken, I was at a seminar on 1031 exchanges, and there was a couple of CPAs, and that's just literally all they did was 1031s. And it was funny. He said, here's the 1031 theory. He said, and then you can see if I'm right. He said, you buy a piece of property, and then you exchange it for another one, exchange it for another one, exchange it, and die. And he stopped. And we were laughing, going like, oh my gosh, that's it. Because you're deferring the capital gains. And when you die, the capital gains reset to fair market value, which we all know that's a wonderful thing to have it reset to fair market value. I talk to people about that a lot. It's like, it really makes a difference if your basis resets. So tell us about 1031s. Why, when, how, when do we do these?
Well, I totally agree with the CPA. But there's a lot of things you could do along the way with it while you exchange it. So there's two things I wanted to make sure we went over before I exit the day here. So the first one is for people just to understand what is a like-kind exchange. A lot of times people say, well, what's an exchange? So it's important for somebody to understand like-kind is what they're talking about is the fact that it's real property. So if you have a piece of land that you've owned as an investment and you want to sell that piece of land, you've owned that piece of land for 10 years or whatever, and it's appreciated, you can exchange that piece of land into a house. You can exchange that piece of land into apartment buildings, into whatever, because it's like for like. You can't exchange that piece of land into stock. You can't do it into a collectible, into something else. So it's important for people to understand that, let's say you have a little house right now that you've been renting, and you've been renting it for 20 years or something, and you have a lot of equity. But at this point, you'd like to buy units. You'd like to have more, a duplex, a quad, something else. Normally, if you were like a normal security, you'd have to sell it, you'd have to pay your taxes, and then whatever you have left on your proceeds is what you put down on your new building. Well, with this, you can actually do an exchange. There's not a complicated process, but it's a process you have to follow with timing. Really well, Gary, that the timing is very strict on the IRS and how you have to do it.
Mm-hmm.
But we do it all the time, week in and week out throughout the year. And the bottom line is the money that you would have paid in taxes, whether that's state or federal taxes, the money that you would have paid out, you can actually re-leverage that money into your new property.
Okay.
As long as you don't take any money out of it. So in doing that, you always have a third-party qualified intermediary, and that intermediary is who actually takes control of the proceeds of the one sale, and then that intermediary is who's going to direct those proceeds into your new sale. And so there's details that, not for this show right here, but the bottom line is you can take all your equity position and put it into a new property, and for many different reasons have better income, have a new depreciation schedule. You could just be improving your investment, and then you can keep letting that investment grow, and then doing like that CPA says, exchange it and exchange it and exchange it, and then die and leave it and do whatever you want after your death. It's the best financial vehicle out there to develop wealth and generational wealth.
And it's really, it's one of the, and the way you explained it was perfect. I like that. It's one of the very few things that's really that wonderful with taxation. I mean, because you can actually have this multi-generational plan. I mean, it fits right into, estate planning. And I love the way you explained that, you can exchange different things. The idea is you're kind of moving up. I would love it. Ken, can you give us an example or two of maybe like an actual exchange that you have been involved in, or maybe a good example for us?
Sure. I'm involved in multiple. I just completed an exchange a couple of weeks ago where somebody was in the Austin market in Texas, and they had a duplex there, and they're really not going back to Texas. They felt like Austin was not exactly where they wanted to hold their property. The market was getting very unstable there. Austin had a big buildup during the pandemic, and right and left in the market that he was there, he goes, I'm just not feeling very good about the neighborhood. So what we were able to do is we were able to take that property, put it under contract there with an agent in Texas, and then we had an intermediary out here close that deal, and then he bought a house here actually in close to La Mesa, El Cajon area with a very large lot that he's going to then, we've closed that deal, and then he's going to actually add on to that house because the house has a lot size to add those ADUs. So he's going to actually add units onto that house. A totally simple, all day long kind of a transaction. But for people to be able to move interstate lines, it's a really important part because it's federal law that dictates it. So
That's great.
if you're not ever going to sell that property eventually, then there's separate rules, because if you sell out of California into another state and you don't die, you don't keep exchanging it, you don't die, and you sell it one day, California has something called the California clawback. So that's a whole different subject to talk about. But so you would still end up having to pay California. So the key is you need to die out of it if you never want to pay the taxes.
That's true.
Which
And-
sounds kind of odd, right?
But well, not really, because I think if you realize that real property, you're not living on the equity of the real property, you're living on the dividends. And you know, and I'm not an investment advisor. That's our guy, Anthony, can talk about that tomorrow. But the idea is, when Anthony describes it, he says you get real property, and that's a dividend property. It's dividends. You have real property, it's getting rent, and you have the net positive, and then you have the dividends, and you also have the growth. But then the fact that you
can have a call, Gary.
we have a call, and who is calling us
Billy
today?
from Escondido.
Hello from Escondido. This is Gary. Welcome to the Word on Wealth.
Yes. Hello. I had a question. So there's an elderly lady that has her home for over 20 years. She is out of money, and she needs to sell her home to have the cash to continue. But they don't want when I say they, I mean the people that are in charge of her trust. They didn't want her to repurchase a smaller unit or, home. So is she going to get taxed on the money she made? Like, she bought it for 400, it's worth about 800.
So Gary, do you want to take that?
Yeah, Ken, go ahead.
Should I?
Yeah.
Okay. So let me ask you just a quick question. Is she owner occupying this house that she's living in?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, it's an owner occupied and she owns it. So if she went to sell it, everybody that, and if she's not married, if it's just her, they have a tax exclusion for a principal residence. So she would be able to exclude up to $250,000 of her gain as a principal residence. Over that $250,000, then it goes down to, over the time that she's owned it, has she done capital improvements? There's a complicated tax kind of recapture, make sure whatever she's put into the property, she'll be able to deduct any and all cost of sale, and
right off type thing. Okay.
Anything that she spends to sell the property, real estate commissions, anything like that. And then once you put all of that together plus the $250,000, then if there is any gain that's left over, that probably would be subject to tax.
Yes.
Okay.
And in the context of what we're talking about right now, since it's a principal residence, she wouldn't qualify to be able to do a 1031 exchange in what we're talking about here. Her best bet would be, if she didn't want to sell the property, her best bet potentially could be doing something like a reverse mortgage to try to pull some cash out to help with the living expenses. I'm working with somebody else right now where it makes much more sense for them to pull cash out of the property as a reverse mortgage, let the property continue to appreciate with what's going on while the elderly is still in the house and they need to care for them. And when that person passes, then sell the property, because of how the basis of the property will go up to market value and be able to transfer to whoever the heirs are, ideally without tax consequences.
Yeah, they didn't want to do that. They thought that it's a bad idea to do a reverse. But I thought you could do even a partial reverse. You don't have to take out everything. You could do like maybe $250,000 or something.
Yeah, you can. The way the reverse mortgages work is you place the reverse mortgage, they approve you up to a certain amount, and then you only take out how much you need to use. So like they could place like a $200,000 reverse mortgage on the property that's available.
2 minutes.
Only use 25,000. They only use 25,000 or something like that. So it just depends on how they use it and how their particular reverse mortgage is going to affect.
And it's a very high rate though, right? For interest to pay back?
No.
It's a high. I don't think so. Do you think, Gary?
No, they're typically.
That's another story.
Yeah, the rates aren't bad. I mean, it compared to what? I mean, they're typically a little bit higher than conventional mortgages, but they're secured. It's still FHA, I mean, they're FHA based loans. You can only borrow up to like 60% of the value of the property now. You can't borrow, 80 or 90%. So they're pretty secure. A lot of people don't like to get reverse mortgages because they think, oh, it's awful, and they're going to, and when the person dies, the house is going to go to the lender. But that's just not true. In fact, it hasn't been true for over 50 years, but we still have that thing. I mean, reverse mortgages are they're FHA. And if you need money out of the house instead of selling it and incurring capital gains, which may be an issue, this is all the math part of it. It may be better to get a reverse mortgage to keep her in the house. I mean,
Do you recommend any place for reverse?
1 minute.
If you send us an email, I can give you ken@kenpecus.com. I can get you some referrals for that. I don't have one off the top of my head right now.
Well, thank you so much for your time. I know you have other callers, and thank you for all that. And I'll reach out.
All right. Well, thank you for calling. That's great.
We love your show.
Oh, thank you very much. Really appreciate it. We're here with our real estate expert, Ken Pecus. And thank you very much for that call. Really appreciate it. Remember, his email is ken@kenpecus.com. And then Ken can give you a direct referral to a mortgage lender that can get you a reverse mortgage and talk about the pros and cons. And when you talk to, any real estate expert, you talk to people and ask questions. That's why we have Ken here. It's not like, they're going to like trick you into something or convince you into something. It's all about getting the information that you need. We're here with Ken Pecus here on the Word on Wealth. Hey, Ken, can you stay for a few more minutes to talk about 1031s?
Yeah, I'd love to get this one thing I wanted.
You've got questions. We've got answers. This is the Word on Wealth with Gary Quackenbush of GQ Law. Gary's here to give you peace of mind with expert estate planning, trust administration, inheritance, and probate. Call Gary to build, protect, and transfer your wealth. 855-500-TRUST. GQlaw.com. Tell a friend about this broadcast outreach, The Word on Wealth, with Gary Quackenbush of GQ Law. Call or click to request your free initial consultation or to talk with a member of the team. Call Gary at 855-500-TRUST. GQlaw.com.
Right. Thank you for being a part of the Word on Wealth and being with our show today. We have lines open, 888-344-1170. I really enjoyed that last caller. Had a great question for Ken. And we're going to send her some information on reverse mortgages and when they're good and when they are not, and give her some help with that. So that's terrific. So we're back. Ken's agreed to stay on with us because we're talking about 1031 exchanges. There's more to talk about. And we want to tie the 1031 into estate planning. If you have questions for us, call us on the air right now. It's 888-344-1170. We do have some lines open to talk to Ken Pecus, our real estate expert here on the Word on Wealth, 888-344-1170. All right, Ken. All right. So we were talking about the 1031, the example you gave, which was great. A client in Austin, Texas moves there. A bunch of people do, and he realizes he wants to get back to California. So you do a 1031 exchange from the selling the Texas properties, purchasing California properties, and all because it's a 1031, it's tax deferred, and that capital gain, now it's in this new property, and you can keep moving it and moving it and moving it and never have to recognize the capital gains and until it's sold. And sometimes you can hold off with a family empire, family, estate planning and stuff like that. You can hold off until after death, and then that capital gains tax will just go away.
Perfect. Well, one of the things I see all the time is I handle a lot of estates. So there's, it's part of my specialty. It's how I work with you too, Gary. So I tend to see a lot of properties that have to be sold, and the parents are selling their the parents have passed, and now the beneficiaries are inheriting the property. And inevitably, I'm closing one tomorrow where you have multiple beneficiaries. You have 3 children or 4 children, whatever. One or two of the beneficiaries actually wants to hold on to the property. But what ultimately happens in a family of 4 kids or 3 kids, you end up having 3 or 4 different lifestyles that have developed into adulthood over that time. Some people might want to hold the property. Some people really need the money to sell it at that point. And that seems to happen. So it got me thinking over these years is that for people that have a substantial amount of equity tied up in one single property, they might want to consider as part of their estate planning to do a 1031 exchange, because one of the things about a 1031 exchange is they allow you to go from one property and exchange and keep the tax deferment into upwards of 3 different properties. Okay. And so think about this. You're aging, you're fine on your life. You have enough money. Maybe you have an apartment building. Let's just say you have an apartment building that has $6 million of equity because you've owned it for a very long time. It has, whatever, it has 20, 30 units, and it's giving you your rents right now. That rent is part of your lifestyle that you're living on. But when you pass away, you plan to leave those to your 3 kids. So what happens? You pass away, it goes into, it's in a trust and the estate, and so the property has to be sold. But one of the kids says, God, why don't we just hold the property? And, where the other kids say, well, I'd love to, but hey, I need to do this because I'm not in as great a shape as you are, or whatever. If that parent or that person, whoever had that property, considered, let's say they have $6 million and actually did it 1031 exchange out of that $6 million property equity position into 3 different properties that had $2 million each in equity position, they can literally kind of work with their individual kids along the way to do estate planning for what those kids might like, and especially the ones that might want to hold on to property after the fact and not really sell it upon inheriting it. They can actually do an exchange into 3 different properties, and they can tag one property that's going to be kid 1, kid 2, kid 3. And when they do pass on, part of their estate planning is each one of the kids that's going to inherit one of those properties can make the decision for themselves whether or not they want to continue to keep it at the new basis or they want to sell it and go. So it would have worked really well for several of the properties I've been doing in the last 3 or 4 months, because there has been people as part of the beneficiaries that just didn't really want to sell. And there's been people that absolutely have to sell. And the ones that absolutely have to sell, they break the tie, they get sold in general.
Interesting. And thinking about that, that's really a great example. I really like that. And the way I have seen that is that the parents are the ones that have been holding on to the real property. It has so much gain or value built up, because that's what they have done for years and years and years and decades. They've been building properties, getting it so they have the rental income, the ability to maintain a really healthy lifestyle and all that kind of thing. And then they are the ones that have all the knowledge and wisdom. And when they pass away and just leave that to the kids, for the kids, it's like, whoa, never owned an apartment building before. I don't know what to do with 12 units. I don't know how to sell it without losing a lot in commissions. So what happens is you have the parents who are kind of the real estate professionals, the ones that really have their brain around it, for them to go and as part of their retirement plan is to divide that property into smaller chunks so that the kids can make easier to make decisions. That way the kids don't start out big trying to sell property and then have issues. You can split it up so the kids, so that it's kind of pre-set up for them. And I think that's a really good idea. I do see that, where the kids, when they inherit the property, it's like, I've never owned real property. I don't know what to do. And they're not good at it. And it's too big and it's too much. And they end up selling after they've made some bad decisions. So I like that. That's interesting. 1031 exchanges that's a big plan, man. I like it.
Yeah. Well, in addition, the parts that also get the parents, they retain control over the properties. They retain all the income. Their lifestyle doesn't change. They get new depreciation schedules for the other properties. But on top of that, what it eliminates is conflict between the siblings after the fact. There's a dramatic difference in anybody having a problem. I can't believe my sister wanted to sell. What a stupid thing for her to do. We could have had this. So it takes away that conflict. They're already dealing with the loss. They're already dealing with the emotional trauma of losing your parent or whoever it is that did it. This way, if you had multiple properties, it just makes it easier so that you take that aspect out of the equation. And then along the line, whether or not the parent wanted to have the child involved in the property, that's up to them. But arguably, they've just done a better estate planning for them after the fact.
I like that. I agree, Ken Pecus. I really agree. Ken Pecus, his contact information is ken@kenpecus.com. That's Pecus, kenpecus.com. Direct line 619-977-8419. Ken, another thing on the exchanges, I think, I had a client that, just kind of an example of an exchange is he had like 9 little houses, and it just got to be where the maintenance and upkeep on all these little single family homes, it was a lot. They weren't worth a lot of money. And he exchanged this was his I'm getting old plan, exchanged all of them into a commercial property. It was a triple net lease. It was a restaurant and all that, and actually did really well. But it was kind of this whole thing of, what do I do? He could have just started selling off his properties and had a bunch of cash, but he would have had to send a lot of it, like a huge amount of it. He'd have to send it to the government, like 40%. So he decided to exchange it for something that was less maintenance, less thinking, and where he still had as good, if not better, income. So I'm thrilled that we were talking about 1031s and that you have that capacity in that team. So I really appreciated having you, and thanks for staying for the extra minutes. I really appreciate that too. This is Ken Pecus.
Always a pleasure.
Ken at the Ken Pecus Group. I'm sorry, Ken at kenpecus.com, the Pecus Group at eXp Realty. So Ken, I hope you have a great rest of your day and week, and I look forward to talking to you next Wednesday. We'll take you listeners, when Ken comes back on Wednesday, we'll take more calls. So kind of, think about your calls. What are you going to talk to Ken about? What do you want to know on next Wednesday when Ken is back partnering with us here on The Word on Wealth? Tomorrow we've got Anthony Wright. He's on Thursdays when we're talking about money. And Friday we have our Finding Joy Friday. We got a good guest coming up this Friday. So Ken, really appreciate you being around today. Hope you have a good rest of your day, man. Appreciate it.
You too. Thanks, sir.
All right. You're listening to The Word on Wealth. Coming up next, I'm going to do a little bit of a recap. I got an idea for you on estate planning that would help out. Remember to call Ken. Call him right now, 619-977-8419. We'll be back in a sec.
You don't need to know everything. You just need to know where to find answers you can trust when you need them. Welcome to the Word on Wealth with Gary Quackenbush. We're here to help you build, protect, and transfer everything you've worked hard for with expert estate planning, trust administration, inheritance, and probate. Call Gary and the team at gqlaw.com. 855-500-TRUST.
Gary, our listeners are asking about trust disputes and whether or not they'll actually get the inheritance they're expecting.
I think that's a scary thing for most people because they feel like, if I ask my successor trustee, hey, where's my inheritance? You kind of feel like, oh my gosh, I'm being like rude or whatever, inconsiderate. But I'm telling you, if time goes on, if it's been like 60 days, 90 days, 120 days, that's too long to have heard nothing. You're supposed to hear fairly soon, like within a couple of months after someone's passed, you should be hearing from that successor trustee. And if you're not, I think there's an issue we need to address. So it's not like we're going to go screaming in there, filing lawsuits. We kind of use gentle nudges like, hey, do you know what you're doing? Successor trustee, we kind of want to help you do your job, and we help beneficiaries kind of get things straightened out.
Call or click to request your free initial consultation. gqlaw.com, 855-500-TRUST, gqlaw.com.
Who will you trust with the biggest financial decision of your lifetime? If you're playing,
It's now time for Strumming with Gary. Talking about and singing about your real estate blues.
and my family, they can help you. This is Gary Quackenbush of the Word on Wealth. You hear Ken every week here on the Word on Wealth. He's our expert. He's got integrity, exceptional service, deep knowledge of the San Diego, Coronado, and South Bay regions. These are just some of the reasons that Ken Pecus has completed hundreds of transactions. He manages a powerful team of professionals at the Pecus Group. From single-family attached homes to luxury high-value waterfront properties to apartment buildings, Ken Pecus is ready to help you avoid problems and costly mistakes. Learn more online at kenpecus.com. That's Ken Pecus, Pecus.com, or call 619-977-8419.
DRE number 010566969, brokered by eXp Realty.
You're not alone. Ask for the legal help you need. Call Gary and the team at GQ Law, 855-500-TRUST, or go online and download Gary's free ebooks and videos. Read Gary's blogs. Call or click to request your free consultation or to talk with a member of the GQ team. That's gqlaw.com, 855-500-TRUST.
Welcome to the Word on Wealth. That was a great show that we had with Ken Pecus of the Pecus Group. We were talking about 1031 exchanges and how that affects your estate planning. And I think sometimes we talk about things on the show that don't apply to everybody, but they could. And so I love having Ken on the show, and I really appreciate our caller calling in and asking a little bit about what to do with the old folks live in the home and you got to get some money and the kids don't want to sell because they got a capital gains tax issue. So what do you do? And I think the answer that we came up with, which I think is completely appropriate, is sometimes you need to consider, is there a way to get money from that property without selling it? Because the alternative is selling it and then relocating mom. So if mom wants to stay in the house and she physically can, then you can get some money out of the equity. I mean, the equity is there because she has maintained the property and she'd been in the property for a long time. And that's why there's equity. The only reason there would be a tax consequence is because there's equity that has grown just by the fact that she's been there, owned it, made a good decision years and years ago. So let her reap the benefits of that. Sometimes that will be taking equity out of the property in the form of a reverse mortgage. The reverse mortgage industry calls them home equity conversion mortgages, typically HECM, HECUM, home equity conversion mortgage, because reverse sounds so odd. But you know, the thing with the reverse is a regular conventional mortgage amortizes. That means if it amortizes over 30 years, all that means is you start paying and 30 years later, it will amortize to zero. So the loan gets lower every time you make a payment. Then when you have interest only loans, which do exist, those are called non-amortized. What does that mean? Well, every time you make a payment, it's only interest. It's only the interest that is accrued on the loan. So you make your payment interest only, and the loan balance is still the same. So it's a non-amortizing or a zero amortizing loan. So you have amortizing, which is like typical standard amortization loan. And then you have non-amortizing, which we call interest only, because that sounds really good too. And then you have the other one, which is called a reverse. It's reverse because it reverse amortizes, meaning if you take out a certain sum of money, $50,000, for example, you don't have to make payments on it. So the amount of interest that you would have paid if you made a payment, that interest just gets added to the loan. So it reverse amortizes, it gets bigger. Okay, amortization goes all the way down to, if you've got a 20-year note, it's going to amortize to zero. It'll fully amortize, meaning it'll be zero at the end of 20 years. Interest-only loans, which tons of people do interest-only loans. So if it's an interest-only loan, what are you doing? You're just using the money. You have to pay it back. And all you're doing is you've used the money, you're enjoying it. And so you're paying interest on that. That's an interest-only loan. It's non-amortizing. That may sound terrible. I don't know. But reverse amortizing, not only do you not pay interest, you don't pay anything, because you don't want to amortize it, meaning make it go away by paying principal, although you could if you wanted to, but it's reverse amortizing. So it's going to go up. So if mom lives in that house for 30 more years and you have the loan is reverse amortizing for 30 years, yeah, it'll be a lot bigger loan, but she will have had use of the equity in her property. And the idea of a reverse mortgage, and you can talk to reverse mortgage lenders about this, the idea of it is that the interest or the cost of the loan is usually, especially in Southern California, is less, and many times significantly less than the increase in value of the real property. So maybe the loan is going up, but the real property's loan value, or the real property value, is going up even faster. So that's kind of that's the idea. It's all numbers. It's all, math that you have to be penciling in and figure out whether it will work for you or not. But a lot of people are scared of reverse mortgages. They say it's a terrible decision. My mom got a reverse mortgage on her house before she died, and now we have to pay it back. And usually my comment to them is, well, what did your mom get the reverse mortgage for? Oh, she had to pay. She wanted to travel a little bit, and she updated her kitchen, and she got some new furniture and all that. So then my question is, well, if she shouldn't have got a reverse mortgage, where would she have gotten the money to travel and to do the repairs and the improvements in her home? Are you going to give it to her? Loan it to her out of your personal savings? No. Mom doesn't need to travel. Oh, come on. It's mom's money. It's her equity. Help her figure out how to do it in the most financially efficient way possible. That's what our job is as kids, not to deny them. It's their money. It is not ours. And if we're thinking in terms of, mom shouldn't do this because it's going to leave less for me, really, that just seems to me like not a financially, that's just not fair. Okay. It's mom's money. Help her be reasonable. Now, what happens with reverse mortgages? So the problems I've seen with reverse mortgages is, let's say mom goes out and gets a reverse mortgage, and she gets an open line of whatever, $300,000, let's say. If she never uses it other than for, necessities and maybe some travel here and some expenses there, she's never going to spend all that $300,000. But what I have seen happen is mom gets a reverse mortgage, And the family member that's living in the home is saying, yeah, so we should, we're here to take care of you for the rest of your life, and your bathrooms need updating. And so then they go and gut the bathrooms and redo the bathrooms, and the kitchen needs updating. So they go and gut the kitchen and redo the kitchen. And, $150,000 later, the house is all updated and beautiful so that the kids that are moving in to take care of mom will be more comfy. Those are the things that really annoy your siblings, because mom was fine in the house. It's not like she's living in a big mess. It needs sprucing up, but why spend so much money, just because you have a reverse mortgage or you open up? That's what I've seen the problems is when the spending on the reverse mortgage is really high, and it's like inappropriate, like mom gets swindled or somebody tricks her. And so she feels so bad. She writes somebody a check for, $20,000 to try to, save someone or help some out or whatever. That's, yes, that's her choice. Yes, that's her option. But sometimes our parents get taken advantage of because they are sweet and kind and they have some money and they don't process things as fast and they're more easily tricked. That's the sad thing. People trick our parents and our grandparents into doing things that they wouldn't normally do. That annoys me. That really makes me mad, actually. And if you have a reverse mortgage available and the spending is controlled, they're great. That way, if something ever happens, you don't have to go and apply for a loan really quick. You can go and draw down against the reverse mortgage. So not a bad deal. Something to think about. I'm not a financial advisor. I'm just an attorney. If you want to talk about some of these things, some financial concepts, wait for tomorrow. We'll have Anthony right here on the Word on Wealth, right here on Thursday, talking about all things financial. And probably he's probably going to mention the new consumer price index. We'll ask him about how that affects us and whether it's something that we need to talk about, be worried about, and things like that. So there you go. All right. In helping parents, too late is something I hate. Okay. Too late is just really frustrating. So if mom ends up in assisted living, in a rest home, in the hospital, in the emergency room, and that's when you start to think about, does she have an estate plan? Does she have a will, a trust? Does she have the documents she needs? It's like too late, guys. And I just don't like that feeling. It's difficult as a child, as you know, if your parent doesn't have an estate plan and they have some money, they have like a house. So now you're worried and you don't know what to do and you don't know how to make it happen, because some parents, and there's nothing you can do about it, some parents just say, I don't want an estate plan. I don't want to waste my money. I know that seems ironic and funny, but some parents will do that. I don't want to waste my money. I'm not going to waste my money. I'm not going to do an estate plan. It's yours anyway. You guys just deal with the mess. I'm totally good with that. That kind of response, you're not going to get any further from that. You just won't. So it's okay. It's their money. It's their estate. It's their time. You just have to do the best you can. And so one of the successes that I've had recently, very successful, is I had a daughter that said, she was going in to do her estate plan. She was coming to see me, which is fantastic. And she invited dad because she said, Dad, I need to get a second set of eyes and ears on this thing. And I want you to come with me and we'll talk about my estate plan. There wasn't anything weird about it. There wasn't anything where I'm secretly talking to her in the corner to try to trick dad into getting an estate plan. Nothing like that. The fact that he was there was fantastic. It was super supportive and wonderful. And we just talked about estate planning, disclosed all of her assets to me, talked about what she needed with an estate plan. And her dad was really excited that he understood it and he was happy. And he said, okay, I think I'll do one too. And that was, the goal was to get them both set up. So the motivation was together, they could get themselves set up for the future. And that was wonderful. So waiting too late, it's painful. You have to have those conversations. Please don't be afraid of your parents. Just figure out a way to bring it up nicely. Like, hey, mom, I think I want to help you get your affairs in order. Make sure you got your paperwork in order, because you know how California is. You don't want the government taking all your stuff. let's work on your paperwork. Can I help you with that? I'll keep it confidential. I won't talk to my siblings. Let's do that. So help your parents. Don't wait till it's too late. Call me 855-500-TRUST, 855-500-TRUST. Let's get together and talk about your estate plan. Let's get it together.
Tell a friend about the Word on Wealth, featured since 1995. With financial solutions attorney Gary Quackenbush, an expert in estate planning, wills and trusts, and tax problem solving. Gary is past president of the California Society of Tax Consultants. Reach out to us. The Word on Wealth team of financial experts is here to answer your questions and help preserve your family's financial future.
The information you hear on the Word on Wealth is for general information purposes only. This program discusses general financial and legal topics. Seek legal advice from a competent lawyer for your individual legal needs. The